a game that I played yesterday that'll show why you need to focus on your end games. And so he starts with a classic e4, and I opt for my Sicilian defense. He develops his bishop, so he doesn't go straight for the Italian game, but you'll see that he's going to bring his knights out, and we're going to have a pretty spicy contest here in the middle. And so I continue developing, as does he. I'm looking to fianchetto my black bishop. Like I said, he brings out his knights, and I fianchetto my bishop, and he breaks open the center right away, contesting my c-pawn, which I elect to take, and he trades back with the horse. Now, I don't want to just trade my bishop for that horse, as my bishop on the g-file is extremely strong, and so instead I just look to develop my other horse, try and open up some of my pieces, maybe get my D pawn pushing if I can trade off some pieces, which he obliges me, and I trade my B pawn instead of my D pawn. I don't want him to take my queen and ruin my chances of castling, and so that's why I took with the B pawn instead of the D pawn. He castles, and I push the middle, looking to break open the center. He backs off, and I say, okay, I'll develop my piece and look to take a free pawn. He elects to defend it with uh, his castle, so I just continue developing as normal. And he does this weird horse maneuver, which I don't think really works out for him, as you'll see in the next couple moves. I kind of take advantage of his position. So I take the pawn. I'm not worried about the castle taking it because I have it defended. He threatens my bishop, and I say, okay, that's fine. I'm just going to castle away. Which, I don't know if that was the best move. I think it's okay. You're getting the king out of the way, and you're connecting the rooks as soon as your queen develops. But as you'll see, he just trades, and we end up trading queens. And I end up losing the defender on that e-pawn that was pushed so far. So he evens the material, and the position's pretty equal. I think I'm in a little better position. My a rook is going to develop and have a bigger presence than his a rook, and but he's got a rook in the middle of the board. So as you'll see, I try to pressure his rook. I don't like it there. He just looks to attack it, which is a pretty clever move because if I move the knight, he wins the pawn. So it kind of forces me to trade here, which is okay. Having double bishops against a bishop and a knight isn't always favorable. So we trade, and here I make probably the first mistake of the game. I move my a rook to defend the c pawn instead of moving the f rook, which was a pretty big mistake because it just leaves the a pawn hanging, and you'll see he jumps on it right away. And so I've given him a pawn lead pretty much for no reason, just the fact that I wasn't taking enough time. Uh, you'll see that's a common theme as I play, is I don't think long enough. I make the right move, but in this instance, I use the wrong piece. I have the right idea, I mean to say, but I had the wrong piece to do it. So I push the pawn, nothing else to do really. He does the same, and I'm looking to double up my rooks, or maybe get my rook to the d file. As I see that I can, I mean, if he doesn't open up, so let's go back a move. This was kind of a wasted move right here. I should have moved my f rook to the d file. And then again, I waste another move because there's a beautiful, checkmate, or if he moves the pawns, you can win the bishop. And after missing it twice, I finally think, okay, let's go after this because it looks good. He misses it completely too, and he goes after the c pawn, knowing that he can gang up on it. Uh, if I didn't see this move, I might have just put my rook on d4 or d5, excuse me, and said, okay, let's hash it out over this pawn. But instead, I elect to go for his bishop, which I put him in check. Looks really good. I win the bishop, and you'd think this is pretty easy to win this game from here. You're up a whole piece. All he has for compensation is a rook, but you'll see that he is stopping this march on the right side is really really hard and costs me everything. So never underestimate the value of connected pass pawns. So he trades out, which is good, and the computer says a better move would have been rook to c2 instead of getting behind the b2 pawn. That way you're keeping pressure on more pawns. I think it would have been a better move. But anyways, he puts me in check. I block. he advances, and I take my first pawn. And then this was a point where I was like, okay, I don't like this pin. I want to use my bishop. And so I unpin myself. He pushes pawns again. And right here, I really wish I would have made a better move. Um, right now I'm down a pawn, but I have a better piece. And so if I would have moved my rook to the c file, there's no way he was going to be able to keep that piece from falling, as the pawn can't progress, as I have the bishop covering the dark squares. But instead, I like to go to e2. I think he's down to like 30 seconds at this time, and so I fall into the classic trap. This is a 5+3 blitz game. The classic trap of keeping the pressure on him by keeping his time low. But in this game mode, you really have enough time given back to you after every move that you're really not in danger of running out of time unless you're careless. I think it would have been smarter for me to take more time as we progress through these moves. And so as you see, I'm just trying to win these pawns. And when I looked at the computer evaluation of this, it just recognizes that there's no way I'm going to be able to hold on to my bishop. I need to sacrifice it in order to take both of these pawns down and pretty much play for a draw. But I'm still trying to keep my pieces. Like, I think in this instance, the computer just said take the c pawn with the bishop, and then after he recaptures, capture his other pawn and play from there. And so these are kind of silly moves that I make. I just lose a pawn. I push that h pawn so I don't lose it as well. He threatens my bishop. I retreat. He pushes again. I move my king up. He can't queen because my rook will take. He pushes again. I use my bishop, and basically I'm at the same predicament I was earlier. I'm going to need to sacrifice the bishop to take both pawns. Had I recognized this earlier, I could have saved that extra pawn that I blundered. So it's little things like that that I think make you a better chess player, is you realize what's going to happen sooner than rather than when it just hits you and you're like, oh my goodness, what do I do here? So yeah, he's about to queen his pawn. I like for a rook trade, because I was thinking, this might be easier if I have a piece and he doesn't have a piece. Maybe I can find a way to get behind him and win his pawns. But he just declines, so I have to defend my pawn, and he queens. And here we go. I sacrifice the bishop to take the queen out. I easily win the other pawn. He puts me in check. I just want to hang on to as many pawns as I can. Move the king over, rook trade, and we're out. A better play for him would have been going after my g pawn, but he just selects to trade, and we're okay. So at this point in the game, I'm thinking, man, I had a pretty good mid game, but I wasn't able to convert. Probably playing for a draw here. I don't think either side should win. But you have to know your end games, because you'll see I just completely blundered the game. I had it complete. He blunders first, and then I blunder back to lose the game. And I think this is how a lot of 1500 games end. So we each march toward our pawns. I step up. He forces me to trade or lose. I march over. He marches closer towards my pawns, which I thought was interesting. He advances. I sit behind my g-file pawn. And he marches up, forcing me to trade. So it's one pawn to one pawn. And it's really interesting. The next couple of moves will decide the game. And I think he was at lower time than this. He's probably at like 15 seconds. So I'm moving fast, trying to keep pressure on. But I think looking back at this, the best thing that I could have done is just gone really slow and calculated each move. Because he makes a mistake, but because I'm moving fast, I also make a mistake. So I can't convert. There's no point in trying to pressure someone to make a mistake with low time if you yourself are going to make a mistake that won't convert on theirs, if that makes sense. So I move over, and right here, he's got the game pretty even. I march up, ceiling so he can't get away, and he steps up and puts me in check. And this is one move wins the game, one move loses the game. And because I was playing so quickly, I made the move that loses the game, and I stepped down, which instantly loses the game on the spot because there's nothing I can do to stay next to my pawn anymore. Had I gone forward, it's a completely different game. So I'll show you how this game pans out. And if I would have moved up, he would have been forced to move down to h7, and I could have won his pawn and he couldn't have taken mine back, and I would have been able to march my pawn all the way up the board without contest, right? But by stepping down, he steps down, and now I can't protect my pawn anymore, forcing me to step back. And then because of this mistake, the game's just over. I think maybe I can get a stalemate here, but it's impossible. He just marches his pawn right next to me, puts me in checkmate. So I think this game really demonstrates the importance of taking your time when you have it. If you notice, I ended with 2:49 left on the clock, and I technically had him at this in this game at the very end. He made a mistake because he was low on time, but because I was so focused on pressuring him to make a mistake, I made a mistake once he made a mistake, basically negating the whole my whole plan of playing fast. So really good game. I really enjoyed it, and I think a lot can be learned from it. Thanks for watching.